Hey everyone, Israel here, and today we're diving headfirst into one of the most mysterious and fascinating books in all of history, the Book of Revelation. Many people think of it and immediately picture scenes of destruction, global disasters, the end of everything as we know it. But what if I told you that behind these terrifying images there's a much deeper layer of symbolism, coded messages, and secrets that have been debated by theologians, historians, and curious minds for almost 2,000 years. The Book of Revelation isn't just a disaster movie script, it's a complex puzzle, full of pieces that, when put together, reveal a much bigger story about humanity, faith, and the future. The language used in the Book of Revelation, written by the Apostle John, is intentionally symbolic. It's a tapestry woven with threads of prophetic visions, allegories, and references to the Old Testament. Understanding this book isn't about reading it word for word, but rather about deciphering an ancient code. Why so many seals, trumpets, and bowls? Who are these mysterious figures like the beast, the false prophet, and Babylon? Each element has a purpose, a meaning that goes far beyond its literal image. It's as if John left us a treasure map, but a map written in a language we need to learn to read to find the true riches it hides. It's exactly this journey of deciphering that we're going to start today. Let's cast aside fear and approach this text with the curiosity of a detective, looking for clues between the lines and connecting the dots to understand what's really at stake. Get ready, because the revelations we're about to explore might challenge everything you thought you knew. Have you ever wondered what secrets the Book of Revelation hides between the lines? Today we're going to reveal 5 of them that will change your view of the end times. To start, we need to understand the main key to unlock the door of Revelation. Most of its prophecies are not literal, but symbolic. Think of it this way. John was writing to a community of Christians who were suffering brutal persecution under the Roman Empire. Using direct language, criticizing the emperor or the empire, would be an instant death sentence, not just for him, but for everyone who read his letters. That's why he used what we call apocalyptic literature, a genre that was already known among the Jews and that uses symbols and metaphors to convey a message of hope for the oppressed and judgment for the oppressors. So, when the book talks about a great prostitute riding a 7-headed beast, it's not talking about a literal woman. Many scholars agree that this figure, called Babylon the Great, is a symbolic representation of Rome itself. The city was known for its immorality, its idolatry, and especially for its persecution of Christians. The 7 heads of the beast would represent the 7 hills on which Rome was built, or even a succession of Roman emperors. It's a powerful political and religious critique, but disguised in a way that only the initiated, those who knew the scriptures and the context, could fully understand. This symbolic approach applies to almost everything in the book. The plagues, the trumpets, the angels, everything carries a deeper meaning. It's not a manual for predicting the future with a set date and time, but rather a cosmic drama that describes the eternal struggle between good and evil. John uses images from the Old Testament, like the plagues of Egypt, to show that God, who freed his people in the past, will also act in history to bring justice. Understanding this changes everything. The Book of Revelation stops being a book about the end of the world and becomes a book about God's sovereignty over history, even in the darkest and most chaotic moments. Now let's talk about one of the most famous and feared numbers in history, 666. This number has become a pop culture icon, associated with the devil, the Antichrist, everything evil. But again, we need to go back in time and think like a first-century reader. Back then, there were no Arabic numerals like ours, 1, 2, 3. Both the Hebrews and the Greeks used the letters of their alphabets as numbers. This system is called gematria. Each letter had a numerical value, and the sum of the letters in a name resulted in a specific number. It was a form of cryptography, a numerical code. The text of Revelation itself gives us the clue. Here is wisdom. Let him who has understanding calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man. In other words, the book invites us to do the math. The most accepted theory among historians and theologians is that the number 666 is the result of adding the values of the letters in the name of a specific Roman emperor, transliterated into Hebrew Neron Caesar, or Emperor Nero. If you take the Hebrew letters for Neron Caesar and add their values, the result is exactly 666. Nero was one of the cruelest persecutors of Christians, setting fire to Rome and blaming them for the tragedy. For John's community, Nero was the embodiment of evil, the beast. But it gets even more interesting. Some of the oldest manuscripts of Revelation don't have the number 666, but rather 616. Why? The explanation is that if you use Nero's name in Latin, Nero Caesar, and do the gematria, the sum is 616. This suggests that different scribes, depending on the language they used as a base, adjusted the number so that the code continued to point to the same person, the tyrant Nero. Therefore, 666 would not be a mystical evil number, but rather a political code to identify the great enemy of the Christian faith at that time, a symbol of oppressive and blasphemous imperial power. In the midst of all the chaos of Revelation, a pair of powerful and mysterious figures emerge. The two witnesses. The book describes that they will prophesy for 1,260 days, dressed in sackcloth, and will have incredible powers, such as making fire come out of their mouths to consume their enemies, shutting up the sky so that it does not rain, and turning water into blood. After their testimony, they will be killed by the beast that rises from the abyss, and their bodies will be exposed in the square of the great city, which is symbolically called Sodom and Egypt, where their Lord was also crucified, a clear reference to Jerusalem. But after 3.5 days, they will resurrect and ascend to heaven, to the astonishment of all. But who are these two witnesses? Throughout history, dozens of theories have emerged. Some believe they are literal figures, two prophets who will appear at the end of time. Others, however, follow the symbolic line and see them as a representation of something greater. One of the most popular interpretations is that the two witnesses are Moses and Elijah. Why? Because the powers they demonstrate are very similar to the miracles performed by these two great prophets of the Old Testament. Moses turned the water of the Nile into blood and brought the plagues upon Egypt. Elijah made fire come down from heaven and prayed for it not to rain. Furthermore, it was Moses and Elijah who appeared alongside Jesus on the Mount of Transfiguration. Another very strong symbolic interpretation is that the two witnesses do not represent two people, but rather the church itself, or the mission of the church in the world. The number 2 in the Bible is often associated with valid testimony. According to Jewish law, the testimony of two people was necessary to confirm a fact. Thus, they would represent the law, symbolized by Moses, and the prophets, symbolized by Elijah, who are the two pillars of the Old Testament that testify about Jesus. Or more broadly, they would be the faithful and courageous testimony of Christians throughout history, who, even in the face of persecution and death, being killed by the beast, persevere in their mission to proclaim the gospel, with the promise of resurrection and final victory. Few images from Revelation are as iconic as that of the 4 horsemen. The opening of the first 4 seals releases, one by one, these horsemen riding horses of different colors, white, red, black, and pale or ashen. They are often portrayed as the heralds of destruction, bringing conquest, war, famine, and death. But like everything in Revelation, the symbolism here is very rich and deserves a more careful analysis, because they are not just agents of chaos, but represent the inevitable consequences of human actions when society deviates from just principles. The first horseman, riding a white horse, carries a bow and is given a crown, going out conquering and to conquer. Many associate him with the Antichrist, or a false peace that precedes destruction. Another interpretation sees him as the personification of military conquest and imperialism, like the Roman Empire in its relentless expansion. Next comes the horseman on the red horse, who is given a great sword and the power to take peace from the earth, leading to civil war and widespread conflict. He is the direct result of the first horseman's ambition, where there is conquest, war, and violence soon follow. After war comes crisis. The third horseman, on the black horse, carries a balance and represents famine and economic injustice. A voice announces absurd prices for wheat and barley, basic foods, while olive oil and wine, luxury items, are not harmed. This symbolizes severe scarcity that affects the poor, while the rich remain untouched. Finally, the horseman on the pale horse arrives, whose name is Death, and Hades, hell, follows him. He is given power over a fourth of the earth to kill by sword, by famine, by plague, and by wild beasts. He is not a cause, but the final consequence of everything that came before. Conquest leads to war, war leads to famine, and all of them lead to mass death. It is a dark but realistic portrayal of the cycles of misfortune that humanity inflicts upon itself. At the heart of the celestial drama of Revelation, we find one of the most mysterious objects of all, a scroll, or book, in the right hand of him who sits on the throne sealed with 7 seals. No one in heaven, on earth, or under the earth is worthy to open the book or even to look at it. John weeps bitterly, for the destiny contained in that book seems inaccessible. This sealed book represents God's sovereign and perfect plan for history and for the redemption of the world. It contains divine decrees, the unfolding of all events that will lead to the climax of history. The fact that it is sealed means that its contents are a mystery, incomprehensible to creation. The great turning point happens when the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the root of David, who has overcome, appears and is worthy to open the book. But when John looks, he does not see a lion but a lamb who seemed to have been slain. This lamb is, of course, Jesus Christ. The image is incredibly powerful. The victory that qualifies someone to unravel God's plan is not achieved by the brute force of a lion, but by the sacrifice of a lamb. It is Christ's death and resurrection that unlocks the future and allows God's plan to be fulfilled. Each time the Lamb opens one of the seals, a new event or judgment is released upon the earth, like the 4 horsemen we've already seen. The 7 seals, therefore, are not just random events. They are a progressive sequence of revelations. The first 4 are the horsemen. The 5th seal reveals the souls of the martyrs under the altar, crying out for justice. The 6th seal unleashes terrifying cosmic cataclysms, a great earthquake, the sun turning black, the moon like blood stars falling. And after the 6th seal, there is a pause, where God's servants are sealed for their protection. The 7th and final seal, when opened, does not cause a new disaster, but a deep silence in heaven. For about half an hour, this silence sets the stage for the next series of judgments, the 7 trumpets. The sealed book is the story of the world from God's point of view, being revealed step by step through Christ's sacrifice. And so, we've only uncovered the tip of the iceberg of Revelation's secrets. We've seen that behind the frightening images, there's a coded language, a political critique, and above all, a message of hope. The prophecies aren't a literal script for panic, but a set of symbols that help us understand the great struggle between good and evil, and divine sovereignty amidst chaos. The number 666 isn't a mark of the devil, but a code to denounce a tyrant. The witnesses, the horsemen, the sealed book, each piece of this puzzle reveals a deeper layer of the story of redemption. Revelation challenges us to look beyond the obvious, to study the context, and to understand that its main message isn't fear, but perseverance and final victory. It's a book written to encourage those who suffer, ensuring that, in the end, justice will prevail. It reminds us that, even when the world seems to be falling apart, there's a bigger plan underway, a plan that was unlocked not by force but by sacrifice. Understanding these secrets isn't about predicting the future, but about giving us strength and wisdom to live in the present, knowing that history has a purpose and a glorious end. I hope this journey has opened your mind to the many layers of this incredible book. The truth is, we could spend hours and hours talking about each chapter, each verse. Revelation is an almost infinite well of study and reflection. So, which of these secrets surprised you the most? Leave your comment and don't forget to subscribe for more mysteries revealed. See you in the next video. Thanks.